On a scorching afternoon when the world felt too loud and too fast, a sudden scream sliced through the air like a blade. A small pink bicycle lay twisted on the curb, and a little girl lay motionless beside it. Cars slowed, people stared, but no one moved. No one except a ragged, barefoot boy who lived in the shadows of the same street that had abandoned him. His name was Evan Carter, and in that split second, before anyone else dared to act, he dropped to his knees beside the unconscious child, his hands trembling but determined. The roar of approaching motorcycles shook the road beneath him, but he didn't look up. He had only one thought: don't let her die. If this moment already has your heart racing, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and humanity, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Evan had been homeless for nearly a year. At 14, he had learned to survive on scraps, sleep beneath awnings, and hide from trouble. But tragedy had pushed him here. After his father died in an accident and his mother spiraled into addiction, the streets became his only home. And yet, even after all he had faced, he refused to let darkness swallow the last pieces of good inside him. He leaned over the little girl, Lily Turner, though he didn't know her name then, and pressed his ear to her chest. No breathing. His small hands shook. Memories from a community center CPR class, one he'd taken years ago before life spiraled, flashed through his mind. He locked his fingers, pressed hard on her chest, pushed air into her lungs, and counted every second as though each one weighed a lifetime. His heart pounded as loudly as the bikes behind him. 3 bikers rolled to a stop. Their towering silhouettes fell over him like dark shadows. These weren't just any bikers. They were Hell's Angels, men the town whispered about, feared, avoided. Behind them walked a man with a silver beard, leather vest, and eyes sharp enough to silence a crowd. Grant Turner, leader of the local Hell's Angels chapter, and Lily's father. He saw his daughter on the ground. He saw the stranger hovering over her, and for a terrifying heartbeat, Grant thought the boy had hurt her. But then he heard the faint gasp, a tiny breath fighting back to life, as Lily's chest rose for the first time. Evan didn't even look up. He continued the compressions until she finally coughed. Grant's face softened in a way that no one in town would have believed possible. His knees nearly buckled with relief. The other bikers, who were feared everywhere they went, suddenly looked small, humbled by the fragile miracle unfolding before them. When the ambulance arrived, Lily was already breathing again. Paramedics lifted her carefully onto a stretcher, praising the boy who had saved her life. Evan, overwhelmed and terrified, backed away as though expecting someone to punish him, yell at him, or tell him he didn't belong there. For so long, the world had only treated him like a problem, but Grant Turner stepped forward, not to scold. Not to judge, but to thank him. Yet Evan didn't wait to be spoken to. He ran. Just bolted, heart pounding, eyes stinging, because gratitude felt unfamiliar and attention felt dangerous. He disappeared behind the rows of buildings where he kept his tiny pile of treasures, an old blanket, a rusted backpack, and a few coins he'd earned from odd jobs. The town buzzed for days. Whispers spread: a homeless kid saved the biker's leader's daughter. People who had ignored Evan suddenly cared, but only enough to gossip. They didn't look for him. They didn't ask how he was surviving. To them, he was a story, not a child. But Grant Turner? He searched, because gratitude wasn't enough. He needed to repay the debt carved into his soul. Evan hid in abandoned yards, behind dumpsters, and in empty construction sites. He ate once a day, if that. But everywhere he hid, someone seemed to be looking for him. Big men on motorcycles. People he thought he should avoid. At first, he stayed farther away from town, terrified that the bikers were angry or wanted something from him. But one night changed everything. It rained, a cold, punishing storm that soaked the ground and turned trash into rivers of mud. Evan curled beneath a crumbling wooden shed, shivering so hard he couldn't feel his fingers. Hunger gnawed at his stomach. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. His vision blurred, then headlights cut through the rain. He froze. A motorcycle rolled to a stop only feet away, followed by 2 others. Evan tried to stand, but his legs buckled. His breath came out in sharp, painful bursts. Grant stepped off his bike, not with anger, not with threat, but with worry. He held a thick jacket in his hands, one clearly too big for Evan but warm enough to fight the storm. Evan backed into the wall of the shed, shaking. Grant kneeled, lowering himself until he wasn't towering over the boy. Behind him, the other bikers waited respectfully, helmets off, faces solemn. He didn't scold Evan for running. He didn't ask questions. He gently wrapped the jacket around the boy's shoulders, lifted him into his arms with surprising tenderness, and carried him to a van they'd brought behind the bikes. Evan had never been held like that. Not since his father. For the first time in a long time, he stopped being brave. He let his head fall against Grant's chest, and he cried, silent, exhausted tears that he had been holding for years. The Hells Angels didn't dump him at a shelter. They didn't hand him off like a burden. They took him home, not to a house, but to their clubhouse, warm, buzzing, alive with people who might look rough on the outside but treated him like family the moment he stepped inside. They gave him a hot meal, a clean shower, and a bed with blankets thicker than he'd ever known. When Lily woke in the hospital, her first request was simple: find the boy who saved me. And when she finally met him again, wrapped in the too big jacket and smelling like the freshly cooked meal he'd just eaten, she ran straight into his arms. The whole room watched in silence. Grant, a man feared by the city, felt tears burn his eyes. The Angels made a choice that night, one that shocked the entire town. They took legal action to become Evan's guardians. They cleaned him up, got him back in school, bought him clothes, and gave him chores. Not as punishment, but as responsibility. They taught him discipline, respect, and brotherhood. And Evan, who had once slept beside trash cans, now fell asleep to the comforting sound of people laughing and motorcycles rumbling like distant thunder. He found a family where no one expected him to. He found love where the world assumed only trouble existed. And Grant Turner? He became the father Evan thought he would never have again. As months passed, Evan grew stronger, physically and emotionally. He learned self-defense, bike maintenance, and the unwritten codes of loyalty the Angels lived by. He became Lily's protector, her brother, her hero. The town, once suspicious of the Angels, saw the truth. The feared bikers had opened their hearts in a way no one else had. They had saved the boy who saved one of their own. They had rewritten the meaning of loyalty, and in every parade, school event, or town fundraiser, Evan walked proudly beside Grant, holding Lily's hand, knowing he finally belonged somewhere. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a second to like the video, share it, subscribe, and leave a comment. Your engagement helps us create more stories like this that remind the world of compassion and second chances. Before the ending, we ask you for one special thing. Tell us in the comments what part of the story moved you the most. In the end, Evan Carter, the homeless boy nobody noticed, became the center of a family forged not by blood, but by courage, kindness, and the unbreakable bond of gratitude. And no matter what happened in life, he would never again face the world alone.